What's the best type of watch collector? Well, first, let me start off by offending some of you and painting what I feel is a fairly realistic, albeit negative picture of a classic watch collector or watch enthusiast. I think for the most part, watch enthusiasts, we can be very negative. We can be very cranky. We can be very, I guess you could say, persnickety, quick to judge, ignorant in some cases. It never fails. Every single Basil, or I guess Watches and Wonders now, whenever we're greeted with new releases from brands, in this hobby, without fail, everyone's negative. Oh my goodness, I can't believe such and such brand did that. What a missed opportunity. What were they thinking? They're crazy. I'd never spend that much money on that watch. And I've been guilty of that many times. The first time I saw the Air King, one of my favorite watches now, the Rolex Air King, I said, gag me with the spoon. That is the stupidest looking watch I've ever seen. What were they thinking? It looks like it was made out of spare parts, right? I think as watch enthusiasts, we can call ourselves, committed, passionate, but at the end of the day, sometimes we can be overly critical, overly negative, and overly cranky, and we can get rude with each other. Oh, you like that watch? That's overpriced. Oh, that collection sucks. I can't believe you did this or that. And frankly, it's a little bit ridiculous. So I think watch enthusiasts, they can be overly negative, overly critical. They can also be cheap. When I say cheap, I mean cheap. When you're on, let's say Watch Recon, you see a deal, you have $3,000 in the budget, and you're like, okay, I want that watch. It's within my budget, but there's no way I'm going to offer asking price. No, they said they wanted a quick sale, or they needed the money, or it was something else is inbound. They need to get rid of this catch and release. And you slide in with a very offensive offer. Okay, yeah, you want $3,000? Best I can do is $2,100. I got PayPal ready to go. You guys know what I'm talking about. We're cheap. We're always looking for the deal, the bang for buck. And sometimes we can definitely get carried away and have unrealistic expectations of price, of value. We think our watches are worth millions of dollars, and that one watch that we want to pay on the secondary market, we're only going to spend 3 cents on it. Like, we can get very extreme, very cheap in the way we go about collecting watches. Now, the last thing is we can be very impatient. No, I don't want to wait 6 weeks for a service from Seiko. Are you kidding me? Or I want to buy that watch and you don't offer 2-day shipping. Like, get with the program. We're impatient. We don't want to wait for the Swatch Group to start making a certain, strap option for us. We want it. We want it now. You're telling me I can't go into a Rolex authorized dealer and buy whatever I want that day because I have money in the bank? We can be very, very impatient. So when you think about that, impatient, sometimes ignorant or unrealistic or negative or critical, you add it all up and we're almost the worst type of fan or collector or enthusiast. And so how do we become the best type of collector out there? What would be the best type of collector? Well, to answer that question, I've got to make fun of myself. I've got to share some embarrassing stories. So I hope you guys enjoy. But I think everybody in this journey, in this hobby, no matter if you're just starting out or if you've been collecting for 30 years, we're all at a different spot. And so if we just examine where we're at any given moment, 3 years ago versus now versus 2 years from now, we're going to be at very different places. So take me for an example. Let me share those embarrassing stories. When I was getting into watches, I was completely ignorant and I didn't know what an oblot was or an ETA. Is that an ETA movement? Like, I knew there were automatic watches. I knew there were battery powered watches. I knew there were different, okay, that watch has extra circles in the dial. Like, I was such a newbie, I guess you could say. I really didn't know all that much. The only thing that I did know was that I liked watches. And I had some embarrassing watches. Like, I thought it was great, spending money at a mall and getting a rose gold plated Michael Kors watch, quartz watch that was like 38 millimeter. I'm like, oh yeah, that's extra such and such % off for this sale. Heck yeah, that's great. I'm only spending, $120 on this watch. I had Invicta days. Can you imagine me? And this was like young me. This was not grayed out, overweight Bruce. This was like young and thin and trim, new Bruce, walking around with a 50 millimeter Russian diver. I look so stupid. Oh my goodness. Anyways, I had let's see, what did I have? I had some Kenneth Cole watches. I had an Oakley Judge 2 watch that was the pride and joy of my collection, which is actually a pretty cool looking watch if you look at it objectively. Nothing really awesome when it comes to horological value. But I had these clunkers and stinkers that right now I look back at and I'm embarrassed about my Swiss Legend and my Android and my fashion watches, my diesels and whatnot. But that's how I got into the hobby. So I'm not going to criticize a young watch enthusiast that's ignorant, not at the same place, not at the same snapshot that I'm at, because, at one point I was there too. So anyways, yeah, when I was new, I thought spending money in the hobby meant like $300, $500. Most of my watches were under 200. And so when I'm like, yeah, I got money to spend, I was like thinking $500. And I look at myself now and I'm like, I don't know that there's a $500 watch that really just incites the passion in me that I have to have. I'm more looking into the luxury side of things at the moment. Maybe that changes in the future. And if you were to tell young Bruce, new Bruce that had his Invictas and his Michael Kors and whatever watches, if you were to tell him, hey, one day you're going to spend $20,000 on a watch you can't even pronounce, Vacheron Constantin, I'd been like, no way. You're crazy. So it's just kind of funny. Everybody's at a different spot. You might be in a German phase. You might be in a micro brand only phase or a bang for buck phase. You might be in Rolex only phase or Seiko only phase or your vintage phase. You might be in a totally different spot than where I'm at. And that's totally fine. That's actually a good thing. But I think it's because everyone's at kind of a different spot here in their collecting journey. They're at a different snapshot in time that we can be overly critical and negative and we can go, oh yeah, I'm wearing a sub. Your Steinhardt sucks. We can be rude. We can be judgmental. We can get a little bit tribal and aggressive, YouTube comment sections or certain forums or Facebook groups can be ridiculous. The amount of fighting and that's not a fun part of the hobby. So how do we stop that? How do we be a good watch collector? Well, just remember, I try to remember everybody's at a different spot. What I think is a beater for me now might be a grail to somebody else. And my pride, my Submariner that I'm wearing today, this might be a beater watch for somebody who only wears Pateks and Audemars Piguet, Grand Complications, and Precious Metal. Right? This might be their go to the beach type watch. Whereas for me, it might mean something different. So just keeping that in mind that everybody's at a different spot. And I think if we can do that, we'll be a better collector. I think being the best collector possible has almost nothing to do with the actual watch collection, your actual watches. I know some guys that have very impressive collections that are full of variety and they're impressive, they're expensive. And I can look at them and I can respect that collection. I can envy that collection. But that doesn't make them a good collector. I think the best type of collector is somebody who is just a good person, who's refraining from being overly critical, overly negative, overly cheap or ignorant or impatient, right? They've managed to shed the image, the stereotype of a typical watch collector. I'm going to mention, I won't mention him by name, but there's a guy here local to me that I've known for some time now, and he doesn't know I'm doing this video, and I know he catches some of my videos, but I really respect him as a collector for a couple reasons. One, he's got a fantastic collection. Every time I see a new piece, I'm like, ooh, that was a dang good choice, man. Well done. That is awesome, and I'm just happy for him. Oh, excuse me. And I I love his taste in watches. But here's the thing. One day he'll be wearing a Patty Turtle on a strap code, Jubilee bracelet. The next day he'll be wearing a full precious metal watch from a Holy Trinity brand with cool complications and everything in between. Like, he's got this variety, and he's the least snobbish or judgmental person out there. So for me, I kind of aspire to be like this individual because I respect this individual. And I like their collection, but more so, I like the type of person they are and how they go about this hobby. And so that's what I think the ideal or the best type of collector is that. So if we can be a little bit less judgmental, cranky, crabby, cheap, impatient, we'll have a better time in the hobby. There'll be more harmony in the watch groups, in the YouTube comment section. We won't see as many crap shows, sometimes that we are used to seeing. So what do you think makes a good, or I guess you could say a terrible watch collector? Is it more about the watches, the collection, or is it more about the individual and how they treat people and how they interact with people? Because I think it's more that way than the actual watches. And if you have an embarrassing story, maybe from when you were a noob in the hobby, put it in the comments. I'd like to hear. Have you had fashion watch days or Invicta days? What phase are you in right now? And where do you hope to go as a collector? And how would you examine yourself as a collector? Like, hey, are you non-judgmental? Are you cheap? Are you cranky? Where are you at? I'd like to hear your honest comments in the comment section. Thanks for watching this little bit of a rant ramble today. I hope you have a great day, and see you real soon.